Give or take.
We're inside of T minus 10 minutes and counting. A quick recap if you're just joining us. We had a improvement in the weather forecast for today's launch, going to 90% go for weather after looking at a number of low pressure systems that had been uh, bringing a lot of rain to the area. In fact, some record amounts of rain. But that cleared out in time for our launch weather officer to give us the green light for both weather and the range. Teams came on console a number of hours, several hours before uh, the today's T0. We got our COLA report and then the NLM poll at T minus 43 minutes, and that kicked off our tanking at T minus 35 minutes. And we've been loading propellant since. We're starting to get down into the final milestones before liftoff. We just heard from the spacecraft team that we are on internal power for Sentinel 6B, located inside those fairing halves that you see there at the top of the rocket. And as we approach these final minutes, we have a number of milestones that are coming up.
That first milestone that's coming up is T minus 7 minutes. When we reach that point, we are then in the terminal count and Falcon 9 will begin engine chill. Prior to any propellant flowing, the plumbing on the engines are chilled down, and this just prevents any thermal shock of the system when the cryopropellant liquid starts flowing at a higher flow rate. If you think about it like a glass cup, and you pour very cold liquid in that, if that glass cup is at room temperature and you just shock that cup with the cold liquid, it could crack. The same thing is being done here.
That thermal conditioning is important, um, as you mentioned, for all aspects, especially the engines when they're getting ready to fire up. But we also, pre-chill the lines. SpaceX has also upgraded their ability to recycle a count out here by improving their LOX farm. They can now do 3 consecutive launch attempts in a row if needed. Hopefully we won't need it and we'll get it off today.
Engine chill.
And there's the stage 1 engine chill that you mentioned. Now at about a minute, RP1 loading for the first stage will wrap up, completing the fuel side of the propellant equation for the booster. SpaceX uses RP1, which is rocket-grade kerosene. And then for liquid oxygen, that's the oxidizer. Those are the primary propellants.
That LOX propellant is chilled to just under negative 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Because the propellant has to be so cold, it is loaded later in the count. This is intentional in order to load denser propellant. The denser the propellant, the more propellant you can fit in the tanks. The more propellant you have, the more propellant that you fly, that means the more performance you get. If for any reason we are unable to launch today, which we are not expecting that, those propellants would need to be chilled back down again before our next launch attempt.
After 3 launch attempts, SpaceX would then go to 1 day off and then another attempt after that day, and they would alternate if it came to that. But we are green across the board today, so we're not expecting to have to explore any of those options. T minus 5 minutes, 27 seconds and counting. Up next, looking to start pressurizing the tanks for strong back retract.
Falcon 9 tanks are pressurizing for strong back retract.
That strong back, which is giving the rocket its support right now, also known as the transporter erector. It's going to start retracting from the rocket here at T-minus 4 minutes and 30 seconds, so in just a few seconds. That truss structure is hinged at the base. It has clamp arms around the second stage that open slowly.
Strong back retract has started.
And there go the clamp arms, opening up, releasing the rocket. And now we have the final NLM pull.
LD? Yes, LD. NASA is go for the Sentinel 6B launch.
Copy all. Good news.
And there you have it. NASA launch manager Tim Dunn giving the final go as we count down to the final minutes before the liftoff of the Sentinel 6B satellite riding a Falcon 9 rocket. You see the strong back fully angling back. It's a good visual indication that we are right on time.
Stage 1 lock load is complete.
And as we just heard, Stage 1 LOX load has completed, and this completes all prop loading on that booster. Both fuel and LOX tanks are pressurized using helium. So in flight, that helium just helps push propellants down inside of the tanks and into the engines.
T-minus 2 minutes and 30 seconds and counting. At T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon 9 will enter startup. At that point, the rocket's onboard flight computers take over. From there on out, the countdown is fully autonomous. Just inside of T-minus 2 seconds, the 9 Merlin 1D engines will ignite. And once they're at full power, Falcon 9 will lift off the pad and begin its climb to orbit. After engine start, Falcon's vehicles are held down until all systems are go.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
And there we have it. Stage 2 LOX load has completed. And that concludes Stage 2 prop loading entirely. And as we can see now on the live video feed of the Falcon 9 rocket standing proud and tall, you can see white gas venting from the rocket. That gas is not smoke, Daryl. It is actually oxygen venting from the tank, maintaining those tanks' pressures. We just heard the call out for gas closeout. It's beginning. This just means that the tanks will be topped off and the vents will be sealed to maintain tank pressure. Let's listen in for that confirmation that Falcon 9 startup has begun at T-minus 1 minute.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
At this point, the autonomous flight computers have taken over the launch countdown, and stages 1 and 2 are pressurizing for launch.
LD is go for launch.
We just heard the SpaceX launch director give the final go.
All systems are go.
T-minus 3 seconds.
The range is green. Weather is green. The final seconds of countdown.
T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff of Falcon 9. Go SpaceX, go Sentinel 6B.
Sentinel 6B rising extending nearly 4 decades of the precise sea level record from space.
Falcon 9 booster is currently firing all 9 of those Merlin engines at 190,000 pounds of thrust per engine, and we can hear it, and soon we're going to feel that in our chests. So exciting. After about 50 seconds, those engines will begin throttling down to slow down the vehicle to prepare for max Q. Think of it as kind of like a low-key fire. Max Q, or maximum aerodynamic pressure, is when Falcon 9 will feel the largest structural load of the vehicle that it's going to see during its entire boost phase of flight. Slowing down the vehicle just means that Falcon 9 is going to experience a less load.
Now traveling faster than the speed of sound,
Q.
preparing for max Q. Now we have a few events coming up in quick succession, starting with main engine cutoff, or MECO. That's when SpaceX will shut down all of its 9 engines on the first stage.
Shortly after MECO, stage 2 will separate from the inner stage in the booster, and then the second stage is going to continue on, igniting the Merlin vacuum engine. We're going to hear the call out for that second engine start 1, or SES1. That burn should last just under 6 minutes.
A lot of clouds in the area, so our ground shots not able to pick up that traditional flight into the night sky, but we are looking right down the barrel of the first stage with the onboard camera. Again, the clouds not enough to stop launch, but certainly from a low pressure system in the area.
Main engine cutoff.
Standing by for main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed. MVAC ignition. Stage 1 boost back startup.
That was a beautiful light up of the second stage, and you're looking now getting ready for the fairings to come off. That's our next big milestone. Confirmed. And there go the fairings. You see now Sentinel 6 exposed to the elements of space. Now soaring towards orbit, another step complete in our ongoing effort to understand Earth's heartbeat through its oceans.
Back shutdown.
We're 50 seconds into the second stage first burn. And now the first stage booster basically hitting the brakes by firing 3 of its 9 engines to reverse course and head back down towards the landing zone.
This burn that we're seeing here of the second stage Merlin vacuum engine will last just under 6 minutes. This will take Sentinel 6B to its parking orbit. That's going to be followed by a 45-minute coast, where we're just going to allow and rely on orbital mechanics and physics to take the spacecraft the majority of the rest of the way. This is the exact same flight design and trajectory that we flew back in 2020 on Sentinel 6 Michael Freilich.
Today's first stage booster heading back down to the landing zone, which was formerly the Space Launch Complex 4 West. It's just about a quarter of a mile from the launch pad. So if you're in the area, you will expect to hear the double sonic boom once it breaks the sound barrier on the way back down. We have 2 minutes and 10 seconds left in this first burn. We're at T plus 6 minutes and 15 seconds into flight. First stage entry burn, just a minute away. The Falcon Stage 2 rocket and the Sentinel 6B now racing southward across the Pacific Ocean, just off the coast of Baja California, Mexico. A few seconds away now from the first stage entry burn.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there we have it. That first stage entry burn has just begun. That landing burn,
Stage 2 is
it's
in
going to
terminal
last about
guidance.
25 seconds. That burn just helps reduce the speed of the vehicle to ensure a softer touchdown of the booster. Falcon 9 is using a few of the Merlin engines and 4 grid fins to help guide and orient the booster on its way down.
Stage 1 entry
Those
burn
4
shut
grid
down.
fins are out. And the burn is complete.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
It's awfully dark out there, so we don't have a lot of illumination. But when they do light those burns, we get a good view. So look at our ground track.
MVAC shut down.
And we should be coming up on the end
Nominal
of our
orbit
burn.
insertion.
There you heard
Stage
it.
1 transonic. Stage 1 FTS is saved. Stage 1 landing burn.
A good first burn. Now here comes the booster. Back down on land.
Stage 1.
We just heard a big sonic boom here in the broadcast booth. The landing pad coming into view, 4
Stage one
landing
landing
legs
confirmed.
extended. And there you heard it. The booster, its job complete, back on land, and ready for another flight.
My goodness, Daryl, that never gets old.
That was really loud. That was pretty awesome. We hear cheers from the folks at the Mission Director Center who all ran outside to try and get a glimpse of the rocket. They may not have seen it, but they certainly heard it, felt it, and they definitely heard and felt that sonic boom for the first stage coming back down. So now the second stage, you're looking at the Sentinel 6B riding on top of the second stage, will coast for about 44 minutes. And then we'll go to a second burn of that MVAC-D engine, only about 11 seconds or so. And that'll be followed by a big moment, the separation of the Sentinel 6B from the second stage rocket. How you feeling so far, Nikki?
Oh man, I feel great. This is incredible. I'm just so honored and humbled to be here, be a part of this rich and long history. Very cool moment. Like I said, it just never gets old feeling and hearing those sonic booms, hearing our partners run outside and cheer for that incredible moment.
And there's plenty of work to go. As we continue, we will monitor the progress of the coast phase and bring you some videos to tell you a little bit about Sentinel 6B and its mission. We hope you stick around. And then ultimately, that deployment about 42 minutes from now. You're watching live coverage of Sentinel 6B. This is the Mission Director Center at the Vandenberg Space Force Base. We just saw Karen St. Germain, who's in charge of our Science Mission Directorate here at NASA, hand out a few hugs to the team there. And there in the back of the room, coming back from the view outside, Nadia Venegrova Schiffer, our Sentinel 6 program scientist, there in the back of the room. Great anticipation as we now march towards the second burn and separation. This is the Mission Director Center at the Vandenberg Space Force Base. Sentinel 6B will sharpen Earth and ocean forecasts and even improve how NASA plans safe re-entries for astronauts returning from the moon. And as NASA prepares for those future crews, let's get you caught up on Artemis 2, a crewed test flight around the moon, now just months away.
Just last month, crews with NASA's Exploration Ground System program lifted the Orion spacecraft on top of the fully stacked SLS, or Space Launch Systems rocket. You can see it is now a fully integrated moon rocket as it sits inside the vehicle assembly building at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Teams will perform tests on Orion and SLS with the ground equipment before it is rolled out to Launch Complex 39B for launch. Orion is set to take NASA astronauts Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen around the moon and back during the 10-day Artemis 2 test flight. This mission will ensure Orion is ready to fly with astronauts on board and for future Artemis missions to the moon's surface and beyond. That's your Artemis Moon Minute.
With the Artemis 2 mission and its test flight around the moon. But right now we are focused on Sentinel 6B, currently in a coast phase. To recap for you, we launched at 9:21:42 seconds Pacific Standard Time from the Vandenberg Space Force Base here along the central coast of California. We have been flying for 16 minutes. We had a good first burn of the first booster, and then the second stage had a good first burn and good orbital insertion. And so now there'll be some modification of how Sentinel 6B is oriented with regards to flying through space. And Nikki Russell, our vehicle systems engineer with Launch Services Program, and our co-commentator for this evening. It's interesting, there's an instrument on board Sentinel 6B, the Advanced Microwave Radiometer, that has to have special care taken with regards to how much sun exposure it can have. Explain that.
So, part of flight design and trajectory is spacecraft requirements. That's an input into those analyses. So, as you just mentioned, this AMR, Advanced Microwave Radiometer, which is a NASA-provided microwave radiometer that measures path delay due to atmospheric water vapor along the altimeter path. It has some sensitivities. It's sensitive to solar exposure through its aperture, so as a result, Sentinel 6B must separate in an orientation which protects it from the sun's view. SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket is able to do this by taking advantage of its internal flight software, which tracks the sun's location relative to the spacecraft in each position.
So eventually we will get illumination and pick up the signal of the second stage, which has a camera on it, and the cameras we've been seeing, both of the engine and of the Sentinel 6B. And we'll note that it is turned at that angle, that special angle, to keep that special equipment away from the sun. Don't want to burn its eyes.
Exactly.
Me and you, we use sunglasses.
Yes.
But Sentinel 6, we just turn it away.
Perfect.
Don't look. Don't look at the sun. We're T plus 18 minutes and counting. This is launch coverage of Sentinel 6B, live from Vandenberg, California, at NASA's Mission Director Center. We are T plus 24 minutes and counting here at the Mission Directors Center at the Vandenberg Space Force Base, tracking the progress of second stage of the Falcon 9 rocket, coasting with the Sentinel 6B satellite. You're looking at a ground track as we approach the coast of Chile along the South American continent. Sentinel 6B is giving NASA the most precise sea level data yet once it goes into orbit and gets operational. And this will be critical for communities living on the coast, just like right there in Chile. Here's more on why that matters.
It doesn't even take a big storm to get into flooding conditions. We call that nuisance flooding or sunny day flooding because there could be no cloud in the sky, the sun is out, and you still have flooding in your streets. So in coastal communities across the globe, we're living with water. And depending on where that water is, it could be safe for us or it can start to push us into flooding conditions. Sentinel 6B provides us with the data that we really need to prepare for the changes that are underway and that might occur in the future. So the way that Sentinel 6B measures is it sends a radar signal down to the surface of the ocean and measures how long it takes that signal to get back to the satellite. And from that, we can really get a very accurate measurement of how sea levels are changing locally and on a global scale, down to about a 1-inch accuracy. Sentinel 6B provides us really critical information we need for planning and preparing for the changes that we see from day to day, from decade to decade. Communities that were built over a century ago were built in such a way they knew where the average high tide was and were built with kind of a safety factor. They knew it wouldn't flood all the time. As sea levels change, however, we start to push into flooding conditions. So your high tide that maybe wasn't a problem in the past now becomes a problem and leads to flooding, to impact to businesses. So it's really important that we're able to track those changes over time.